And we are live.
Wicked.
Hi, Robin. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm pretty good. I hope this isn't too loud, the thing.
No, I think it's all good. So thank you so much for joining. Where are you based, Robin?
So at the moment, I'm locked down in the northwest of England, in Cheshire, in my family home.
All right. And how is lockdown for you? How is it affecting your daily routine?
I'm just going to try and turn the... Sorry, let me just turn all these things down a wee bit. There we go. I'll be able to hear you a bit better now. Sorry, can you say that one again?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how is the lockdown treating you?
Yeah, it's going kind of okay. It just feels a bit like Groundhog Day. I suppose everyone feels like that. Just sort of go like on the same cycling route like every other day and sort of eat the same thing. But it's all right. Just trying to stay sane. I've been listening to a lot of new music, so that's been quite exciting. Just kind of trying to spend my time sort of doing that. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, well, it's all good. I'm doing a lot of these hosting these sessions these days, and that feels great. So yeah, for everyone who just joining us, we are receiving Robin Hunter today, who has released the Ocean Waves website, oceanwaves.io, which is an online collaborative sequencer. And Robin graduated not so long ago from Goldsmiths University in London. And his research project was on collaboration. So he worked for a bit and then decided to start his own business. And that's what he's going to show us today. Very excited to hear more about the foundation of it. I mean, collaboration is something that fueled many dreams over the years. It's always a pain when you're a musician to share sessions. It's heavy, it's difficult. Compatibility problems, plugins problems. So having a platform where two musicians can work collaboratively and share the experience, even more if it's in real time, is something that musicians always have wanted to do. You are approaching the problem from a very specific angle, which is you're not trying to solve all the problems, just trying to make it fun for people to go online and play together. So it's all web-based.
Yeah, so it's all web-based, and yeah, I mean, exactly as you say, like the sort of thing that we're not trying to kind of do a full DAW experience on the internet, but more just a sort of fun, fast way to make music and sort of jumpstart people into the fun parts about beat making and finding sounds and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of the main. That was the plan.
Great. Well, I know you have prepared some slides to walk people through the what you researched and what was the foundation, the vision really for the product. So I'm going to let you bring the screen up, and I'm going to disappear while you present that. And if you're just getting started joining us, further down the line, we will have a live experience, and we will invite you to join the same session that Robin and I are on, and we can all try to make music together. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, interesting is the word. Okay, let me try and load this up.
And hello, Martin. We commented on YouTube. Thank you, Martin, for joining.
Hey.
And I'm going to add the screen. Here we go.
Cool. So can you see that all right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I'm going to disappear. I'm going to leave it to you.
Cool.
All right. See you in a minute.
Bro, well, yeah, thank you everyone who's just joining. Yeah, my name is Robin. So today I'll be talking about Ocean, which is a online music making platform that has been something that I've been working on for quite a while now. And yeah, I suppose I should probably first start the talk by saying thanks to JB and Music Hackspace for inviting me along, and also hope everyone in the live stream is doing all right during lockdown. Hope you're safe and well and staying sane. Hopefully things will start improving soon. So what am I going to be talking about today? So yeah, the major point of this talk is to introduce you all to Ocean, I'll explain the kind of beginnings of the project, where it's up to now, and how you can access it, and some of the sort of design decisions that we've taken to get it to where it is today. And then I'll explore a little bit about web audio. How has it got up to where it is now? What do I hope and think the future of web audio will be? And then we will fire into this live jam, and we'll see where we end up. So Ocean, you can find it at www.oceanwaves.io. The major kind of inspiration for this project was very much the fact that there's sort of major barriers to making electronic music major barriers to making electronic music at the moment. So these are kind of twofold: technical barriers and monetary. So technically, there's a lot of software out there, and the sort of default that people seem to pick up as their first music making program are kind of like these industry standard DAWs, so things like Ableton, Logic. And, these are incredibly complicated bits of software. They're very fully featured, professional grade bits of software. So the learning curve that comes with those is very steep, as is the price tag. So, these two factors combined, technical and monetary barriers, really lead to a lot of people sort of being locked out of music making because maybe they don't have the funds or even the technology to run these large bits of software. And also together, it can kind of sometimes create a bit of a kind of obsession with gear, obsession with sort of the ins and outs of like modular synthesis and stuff like this, and can make for beginners, makes the sort of beginner's experience maybe slightly off-putting. So we designed and built Ocean, which is a simple and fun way to make music in your web browser. You can sequence little beats, explore the sound library, and very easily collaborate in real time with friends simply by sending them a link to your session. Then you can sort of jam, explore the sounds, sort of make little beats together, and then sequence your loops into a full track and share it on your profile. So you can kind of hit the site, sign up, explore some sounds, make a track, and share it really quickly. So we're live in beta now. Ocean has been a sort of beloved side project for quite some time, and then a lot of kind of like weekend work on it. And recently, during lockdown, actually, well, just before lockdown, started sharing it around a little bit more, and we've started gathering up some signups, which is really exciting. We've got people all over the world looking at it. A lot of people in China, South America. So yeah, it's super exciting. You can sign up again, oceanwaves.io. So how did I get to this moment? So as JB said at the top, I went to Goldsmiths and I studied creative computing. And the course there kind of approaches these computer science fundamentals by giving you sort of free rein to experiment in sort of sound and art and media. So we did a lot of stuff like making image filters, sort of doing some DSP stuff, that kind of thing. And I sort of really I realized that I was really interested in the web and how we can sort of build platforms on the web for self-expression, these kinds of things. And then during my postgraduate year, I explored technological approaches and UX approaches to real-time computer-aided remote work is the area of study, which sort of sits in the wider human-computer interaction field. And through sort of workshops and building sort of small collaborative apps, I was exploring collaborative digital music interaction, which is the academic title for exploring how do people create stuff together remotely. So in all the papers that you read about these sorts of topics, the sort of major three things that you sort of come across and the sort of dynamics that you can sort of play around with and experiment with are privacy and awareness. So when people are engaged in this session, you know, can they see all the changes that everyone else are making? Do they have a private area where they can kind of prototype what they're going to do, then share it to the public space? Or is it public by default? Some very interesting kind of ways to explore kind of, you know, who's in control of the session, where's it all kind of leading to, and yeah, sort of what level of control to give people. Then secondly, communication. So how can the users communicate with each other? So is it a video link? Is it just a chat box? Or on tools like Google Drive and Google Sheets and stuff like that, because they're collaborative and they're just word processors. Well, they're not just word processors, but anyway, the platform itself can become the tool for communication. So you can, you know, anyone who's used a Google Doc will know that, you know, the first thing you do when you use it collaboratively is, you know, write something silly on it. And then thirdly, goal setting. So what's the point of people using these systems? Is there a real strongly defined success and fail outcome? So this could be things like if people are collaboratively making like a web form or submitting a web form, you know, failure would be they don't get to the end of it. Success would be they do. But then when it comes to kind of like jamming in a sort of musical sense, there isn't really any goal. Maybe the goal is to kind of express the thing you're trying to express, but you know, it's not very tangible. So that kind of really gives you a lot more sort of free rein to play around. So these are the sort of three major sort of outcomes. That's kind of my my findings. So I suppose sort of to round off this kind of like Twitter version of my academic work, my three takeaways were: the web is cool. You can do expressive things on it, which I'll touch on later in this little presentation. And you kind of can really do interesting things quite quickly on the web, which makes for a brilliant way of sort of prototyping, exploring these kind of UX and UI considerations. So it kind of was a nice kind of moment where I sort of studied how to sort of do programming, which was a pretty steep learning curve, really struggled with it to begin with, but then kind of eventually got just enough skills to be able to kind of at least work out what it is I'm trying to do. And then kind of because Goldsmith's come out from a sort of not fully multidisciplinary, but kind of, I was definitely thinking a lot about design as well. It allowed me to kind of, you know, explore the things that I wanted to explore. And the sort of main takeaways of how people worked remotely together was, what I observed was like when people worked collaboratively, the sessions moved a lot quicker. There's a lot more clicks on the screen. People were changing the sounds a lot more. They were sort of in the chat loads. These sort of roles started to emerge on their own. So sometimes there'd be kind of, the session would sort of go into this sort of chaos state where all the sounds sounded a bit crazy and the beats didn't really work together, or it's like way too quick or something like this. And then together, the users kind of brought it back to a sort of nice state where the beat sounded great and they sort of settled on a style that they wanted. And, you know, they got to a point where they were like, oh yeah, this sounds good. And then eventually one of them would throw it into chaos again by changing the main sounds and stuff like that. And then when people worked on their own, they took it a lot more seriously. They were a lot slower. They truly considered what they were doing. So it's really interesting to kind of explore how making music remotely together really changes not only the design of the system, but the kind of music that's being made on them. Yeah, so audio on the web. So along the way, and since graduating and sort of working on Ocean in my spare time, I've sort of been exploring and sort of learning quite a lot about the state of audio on the web. So I'll kind of talk about how it's got up to the point it's at now, and what I want to happen next. And then the plan is to load up Ocean. I'll do a bit of a demo and then hop onto a live jam with JB so everyone can see it in action. Yeah. So web audio general history. So in years gone by, people used Flash to do interactive audio and visual stuff on the web. I'm far too young to have ever written any Flash code, but a lot of the developers who were Flash developers turned out progressed through and then sort of became JavaScript developers. So a lot of developers that I've worked with who are from Flash backgrounds are really great at kind of like Canvas stuff, interactivity and animation and stuff like that. So that's kind of Flash sort of walked so the web as it is today could run. Yeah, so now Flash has been sunsetted, which is the kind way of saying being chopped out of all the major browsers. So sad face for Flash. But along came the audio tag in the HTML5 living spec, which sort of standardized the way of playing back audio files or even streaming audio on the web. So it sort of brought this new wave of a sort of standardized approach for audio playback on the internet. So at the top here, we've got the kind of MySpace music page, sort of old web looking music player, which I mean definitely has its own aesthetic to it. Like it has the sort of graphic equalizer and stuff like that. Sort of really quite a lot of character to it. And we sort of replaced that with the HTML standard audio tag. So we've kind of shipped out the form and sort of dinkiness of these old ones in favor of this really functional audio tag, but it kind of meant that people can embed MP3s on their website and they'll play, and they'll play consistently. But obviously just having like a little player on a website is one thing, but in 2011, the first working draft of the web audio API, was submitted to W3C. So this specification described this high-level JavaScript API for processing and synthesizing audio in web applications. So what does that actually mean? It means that there is a kind of underlying layer written in assembly or C, which takes care of the sort of like hardcore DSP stuff, does all the kind of heavy lifting, like close to the metal. And you can sort of interact with it from JavaScript. So you write JavaScript code, which then goes down to this next level, which then eventually kind of like compiles. So it basically gave people the ability to do things like load audio buffers into memory, or as I've got on this next slide, like instantiate a few little oscillators, run them all through a gain, and then send them out to the destination. So you can do stuff like filters and effects and all that kind of thing. So this is really cool. And it's all kind of wrapped in this big audio context, and you sort of wire up the nodes, obviously in code. This is a sort of visualization of this. So anyone who's used Macs will sort of be quite familiar with this kind of thing. Obviously, Web Audio API is in JavaScript code, but it's this similar, classic approach to doing sort of like procedural audio stuff, where you have one thing, it goes into the next thing, goes into the next thing, and eventually comes out of a speaker. So I think the sort of major thing that I struggled with when doing web audio was definitely keeping time, keeping things getting scheduled at regular intervals. So initially I tried doing this using just a set timeout method in JavaScript, but this is really not really fit for purpose for audio scheduling. Obviously, I think after about sort of like 50 milliseconds of latency in between clicks on a metronome, people can really start noticing, and it starts to sound like it's broken. Because if you do a set timeout and specify the number of milliseconds that you want to wait until the next block executes, it's actually a minimum. So it's, if you say do this after 2 seconds, it really is do this after a minimum of 2 seconds, because the JavaScript engine does like repaints and garbage collection and all that fun stuff. So set timeout is out. You can't really use that. So the alternative approach is, and I learned a lot about kind of like web workers, how you can kind of like farm out that set timeout approach into another thread in a web worker. And then that kind of like pings your main thread and sort of starts scheduling using web audio techniques, which is quite interesting. And then sort of spoke to a kind of wider bit of learning that happened to me with this project, in that, you know, when I first started learning about JavaScript, it was very much kind of talked about as like, it's a dynamically typed, single-threaded language, and it's like people kind of poked fun because it was a bit janky, and it was this kind of sort of slightly. I remember my Goldsmiths tutor, when in the first JavaScript lecture I had at Goldsmiths, the tutor said that JavaScript was the programming language equivalent of someone who's still stoned and drunk from last night's party, and I thought, hey, I think this is the one for me. Anyway, what am I saying? So yeah, so with web workers, you can do multi-threaded things in JavaScript. With TypeScript, you can use types. So, you know, JavaScript has sort of found itself right in the middle of, you know, obviously like content delivery on the web, but now as a language, it's starting to get taken more seriously. So it means that you can do things like loading buffers into memory and scheduling them to sample accuracy. So the web audio API is certainly a great thing to sort of start diving into and learning, not only just for kind of exploring audio on the web, but it will teach you a lot about JavaScript and all of its character along the way. So the web audio API, I mean, I'm a big fan of it, but it certainly has come under some scrutiny. This blog post, I don't know who the web audio API is designed for, was posted on Hacker News, the home of friendly and welcoming technology discourse on the internet. But it did make some quite valid points. There's a kind of major complaint that people have about, similar to what I said about the sort of web worker thing, like why is there not a kind of inbuilt way of doing scheduling? You can't really stream into buffers particularly easily. And the sort of major gripes that people have is around this design of something called an audio worklet, which is you can kind of spin up another thread and do audio processes on that and then link it back to your main audio graph. Because the spec sort of changed, so people would write it in one way and then they had to rewrite it, you know, typical stuff. Then some people sort of saying that the inbuilt effects weren't that great, and I'm not sure if I quite agree with that. But then this sort of like general point of, oh, this isn't a particularly great API because actually you can't really build that much stuff on top of it without having these sort of more in-depth kind of DSP topics covered. But I'm not really too sure if that's a really valid point, because I mean, it provides more than enough functionality to be able to do some rudimentary synthesis stuff, do some timing stuff, and, you know, make some cool little interactive apps in the browser. And yeah, I think we need to, as the development community, look on these things as challenges to solve, and not like writing off things before they've been fully explored. Yeah, so sort of finally looking forward, sort of, you know, exploring kind of how we've got up to the point we're at with web audio, and exploring how things are kind of working now. I've sort of found myself kind of thinking a lot about kind of the web as a platform, and kind of just basically just sort of like development and software as a whole. So the first point, I suppose, is to talk about WebAssembly, WASM. So this is a sort of way of porting C and C++ or assembly code and using the browser as basically just a way of executing that and delivering that to users. So I think the web audio API is kind of a precursor to that kind of becoming a more general approach where you can kind of write JavaScript, but then it sort of doesn't just compile and run, it sort of interacts with these lower level languages, which then really get things like really moving. And as I sort of touched on before, I mean, JavaScript is going through a bit of a sort of metamorphosis away from this kind of single-threaded thing into a kind of really robust language that you find on like servers and all over the place. So there's been some quite exciting examples in WebAssembly for audio stuff, like people porting full-on VSTs and running them in the browser. Still very much experimental, still not particularly widely supported, but does give us a glimpse of what might happen. And when I've been reading the kind of spec of the web audio API and the discourse around it and stuff, it's interesting because it was first put together by some folks at Google, and then Apple have started to shape it as well as the BBC and a few universities. And I suppose it kind of begs this sort of age-old, well, not age-old, quite contemporary question about the web as a platform, in that big tech companies like Apple and Google on the one hand are doing brilliantly well at pushing the web forward, you know, with some very intelligent people helping make that happen, as we've seen with the web audio API. But I wonder how far that will actually go, because Apple's main thing is to try and get people to use apps because they make money out of apps. Similarly, Android for Google. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how, as things sort of progress, and I think a sort of wider computing trend that is definitely one to keep an eye on is like every time there's a new version of Mac OS and iOS, the sort of notifications look more similar, and then there's things like Touch Bar. So it's kind of like my super optimistic hope for the future is like tablets, this sort of tablet phone hybrid becomes the kind of default personal computing interface. Have like really strong processors and like GPUs in the device, and then content's delivered to it through a sort of like hyper accelerated web browser, WebAssembly, kind of like point of contact. And then all the sort of heavy lifting AI stuff happens all up in the cloud, and, you know, fast connections kind of, you know, beam it around. But I think it would definitely sort of be very interesting to see how WebAssembly kind of helps shape the web in general, and helps kind of foster this sort of creativity and letting people think about the web as not just a kind of way of statically delivering like text content or doing some rudimentary animations and things, but becoming an actual tool and an actual sort of medium that people use to kind of build their apps, like cross-platform, single code base, this kind of thing. So that's my kind of prophecy for the future. Maybe it'll happen, probably won't, but we'll see. Have to do another talk in like 10 years, see. But yeah, so my main takeaway is the web is cool and it's getting cooler. Hopefully we can sort of move away from all these websites looking the same and kind of like kickstart this new kind of era of people using the web to sort of develop really strong, useful tools, things like audio editing, video editing, and beyond. And it's great to see the web getting more performant, even if it's had a slightly shaky start in the sort of web audio API and stuff like that. And yeah, so I suppose now I could switch my screen and show people around Ocean, give you an idea of kind of what it's capable of, and then fire up the jam. JB, if you're still there, then there he is.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you so much for that talk. Cool. So we haven't seen any question coming in from the chat, but I suppose we can do the jam. Invite people to join as soon as you're ready, and if you think that we're not at risk of breaking anything, no. And then we can have questions at the end. I think that'd be really cool too.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, I mean, any questions that come in, Yeah, I would love to look at those.
Great.
See, my
Great.
lockdown haircut is not exactly.
Well, no one's judging you because everybody is in the same
Hey.
situation, I think.
Exactly. Right, let's do this. Can you see that all right?
Yes, here we go.
Cool. So yeah, I suppose it's interesting because lockdown has been obviously a very challenging and really scary sort of scenario, but it's interesting to kind of see how people are using, approaching just sort of web and remote collaboration sort of brings on this whole new meaning. So it's been quite a sort of really strange, really, really strange timing, to be honest. But there we go.
Sure.
Right, should we do this then? What do you want to try and make? Are we going
I mean, maybe just before we dive into making some music, how about you give a quick overview of
good idea.
Of how it works?
Yeah, cool. So I was like, just log out. So landing page, there's a massive big green button which says make some noise on it, where you can open up a little demo, have a little play around, and then if you sign up, then it will save your first project. And then here we've got some tracks that have been made on Ocean. You can see that there's people from all over the place. So I don't know, we can use these as a little audio test. So this is a cool one. So that's quite a fun one, just like playing around with like the breaks and stuff. And then there's a guy in Germany who made like a really fast one. I must say, like, I've listened to all the samples in the sample library so many times, and then when I've seen people kind of sign up and then they finish a track and you listen to it and they're sort of using all the sounds in completely different ways and combining them all in new ways. Like this one especially, when I first listened to it, I was like, there's no way they could have they really made that on here. It's super cool to see how people use it. So yeah, this guy, cool. So yeah, then you can quickly make an account. So I'll just jump into mine. So this is just the landing page where you can get a link through to your tracks profile. So on here, it will keep all of the songs that you've created. You can go all the way through and get a link to share. That's one I made with my friend Jordan. That's his Wallace and Gromit GIF profile photo. And yeah, so that's the kind of sort of sharing aspect. And then you can just create a new project. And as you see, there's the feedback form on the homepage. As we've just launched in beta, any feedback about bugs, things you enjoyed, things you'd love to see, really, really helpful for us. So please do take the time to do that. So this is sort of where everything goes down. So it's a 8-channel, 32-step sequencer. You can start sequencing by just clicking, hit play, and the playhead just loops round and round. You can open the effects tab, and in here we've got ability to sort of pitch up and down the sounds. So you can just speed them up or slow them down. And one thing that we've tried to really go for is using very playful, very visual language. Try and break away from kind of talking in too technical terms. Like we don't say things like gain or like pitch or something like that. Just trying to make it really friendly, really fun, really global. And I think we've gotten quite well with that. We've had people sign up from all over. So it's obviously kind of, there's no real language barrier to a lot of it, which is fantastic. So there's 2 types of sounds: singles, where you have 32 steps, or loops. Loops are longer repeating sections of sound, like this one. So that's stuff like drum beats. And then opening up the effects tab on loops lets you speed them up, so then you can sequence it 4 times over the loop. So you can play around with like the speed of it and stuff, and like go crazy, make it really fast. Then change the BPM, change the swing amount. So let's just make that. So the sessions come loaded up with sounds as default, so you can just click around and make a little beat. And then on the left here, we've got the sound library. So this is all Creative Commons, 0 license at the moment. We're exploring a lot of different new sound libraries, so they'll be coming up very shortly. So keep your eyes peeled for those. We're going to have a hell of a lot more sounds, hopefully, over the next week or so. So you can preview by clicking. We've tried to put a nice kind of mixture of different sounds. So I really like that piano one. So you just pick it up, drop it on your track, hit play, boom. For that live demo, have that. And then you can filter the sound library based on family. So drums, synths, vocals, that kind of thing. Or do it by type. So just maybe you just want to see like drum singles, so you can find like classic drum machines and whatnot. And then the sort of most well-received thing is definitely this mood filter. So we've tagged all the sounds with an emoji, so you can see like alien. Those are like alien sounds. And then like peaceful ones. And I think there's something quite nice about that kind of whole approach of kind of not being genre specific and trying to sort of just categorize things in sort of more interestingly, kind of especially very visual ways. So this is the kind of patterns tab, and you can add new patterns to your project and sort of build up more little loops. You can copy the one you're already on into another one and make some changes. So now P2 is the previous version of this kind of thing, and then I can like make it a bit different. And then once you've kind of played around a while, found the sounds you like, made a bunch of loops with those sounds, then you can go on to arrange and export. And then just add your patterns in sequence, then drag them around, like make your full track and then listen to it. Go on to the next part, etc., etc. And you can build it out into your full track, hit export, and then it will bounce it down, upload it onto your profile, or you can download it as a WAV. And then, yeah, to collaborate, you can just hit collaborate, get the link, send it to your friends, they jump on, and then all the changes to the session are synced and saved to the cloud in real time. So you can make tunes together with your friends through the magic of the web. So
there was a question.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So the question, I'm just going to put it up here. Are the tracks from other contributors that are open for collaboration? So I suppose it's like the question is whether there are tracks that people can just join in without being invited to, just as a way to like open collaboration.
Yeah, I also see the URL in the description doesn't work. If it's not working, just make sure www dot's on there, because I think there's a problem with if there's no www dot. Yeah, so are tracks from other contributors open for collaboration? No. So at the moment, no. So you'd start the session yourself, then send the link to your friend. Yeah, there's no kind of open sessions. But I suppose that could be quite exciting, actually, if you could just sort of hop in and sort of see who's there. But
which is what we're going to do in a minute, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe I'll just load that one up now. So Blue Peter style, this is one that we made earlier. Yeah, if there's any more questions whilst we're doing this little jam thing, then please just post them up and I'll get to them. So yeah, so when you send the link to someone, a little chat box appears down here, so you can talk to each other. Yeah, then if someone else changes the sound, then it updates on mine, vice versa. So yeah, this is.
So I have the same interface than Robin, and if I start moving things around, you will see that reflected in there as well. So I'm removing the third bar here, removing some elements here. And yeah, how about we start a bit jamming, and then what is the best way to open that for anyone who wants to try it from home and join us here?
Yeah, if you just copy the whole link.
All right. So
yeah, I'll put it in our little channel.
If you're at home and want to play, join us on the link that I'm posting right now.
Yeah, then from there you can sign up. Then it'll chuck you in.
Right.
I have to like verify the email, but it takes like a second. So there we go. Right, yeah, let's do it.
Cool, let's do it.
I'll keep an eye on the chat as well.
All right. So what does this scary string build sound like?
I turned them all down a little bit before, so I'll just put them up a bit more now.
I'm not sure about that one. You can find the link in the comments where you can join us and play around with this. It's very simple. You just add colorful rectangles in this step sequencer, and I haven't seen any that you or me have not put in yet, but it'd be really fun to have more people mess around with this.
Yeah. Sure, people will hopefully start hopping in. Yeah, it's interesting how just a few little changes can completely throw it into a whole new genre and stuff. There we go. I think if the kicks get too loud and too low, then it can start breaking. Let's see which one that might be. Oh, there we go. Or you can say it's lo-fi.
Good question from Daniele.
Let me see.
Is the code open source?
No, so it's not open source at the moment, no. But I'm trying to consider a way of maybe sort of using more kind of potentially kind of like letting the audio community maybe like make little effects or something that we could put on the platform. But at the moment it's not open source, and there's no real plan to make it open source for the foreseeable future. Maybe that's a bit too quick. But yeah, it's great seeing questions. So, and if there's any other questions about it, I would love to hear them. Sounds great. So always those old drum machines and so chunky.
Love that cowbell.
I can see another question saying, are you using some back-end processing as well? I'm not really too sure what that means.
That means whether you're using, whether you are processing the sound on the server side.
No, there's no audio server side. Yeah, it's quite cool because at the moment there's no sort of step changes, but when people jam live, then they sort of move the effects around themselves, and they can sort of do it as like a sort of, yeah, just like live change of the controls, which is pretty cool.
So, well, I have a few more questions for you. Uh,
Cool.
so it's I understand it's an open beta, and I think it does one thing really well, which is it's immediately easy to get started and have fun, and it needs very very little introduction. And when you've been around uh, audio workstations,
Yeah.
and Logic and Live and Cubase and all of those, which are great to produce, the music that we listen to every day.
Yeah.
These are very hard. Like the barrier to entry is pretty high,
Yeah.
and I think your proposition here is very different. It's more like let's start with having a simple experience, easy to get in.
Mm.
Did you have any sense of whether you want to collaborate with education, whether you're targeting consciously or unconsciously this market or this?
Yeah. So I think there's definitely educational potential with this, and I've got friends who work as primary school teachers and in sort of after school code clubs, and they sort of shown it to some like primary school age children. The feedback was kind of the kids, some of them could just about pick it up, which is quite good. I mean, quite young children can still kind of, I think the colors make it, they're very clickable. So being able to just sort of click, then you can eventually kind of work out, oh, this is one sound, this is another sound. So I think, yeah, the sort of simplicity of the design was definitely to kind of keep that as an option. I think short term, as we say, the beta is up, free to register for the beta at the moment. And we're just sort of, allowing people to sign up, seeing where sort of the most value maybe lies. But I think that, it certainly could. I think there's definitely something interesting in this kind of, would it be a fully educational platform, or is it just a platform that in a sense is educational by design? That's something that we're sort of exploring. But yeah, I think the sort of people that it's aimed at are certainly, as you say, it's not a proposition as like web door. It's something more quick and fun, and trying to play to kind of the strengths of the web as a platform in the kind of disposability, speed, sending links around and stuff. Yeah.
How long have you been working at it this far?
So I graduated in 2016, and then first couple of years when I was working, I sort of didn't really do too much on it. And then sort of in the past sort of year or so, it's been, this has been my side project that I've been doing late at night on weekends and stuff. And then, just sort of this year started working on it a bit more. So yeah, sort of quite a long time. It's been through a lot of iterations. And yeah, as I say, been kind of a sort of passion project for a long time. And then it sort of got to the stage where there was more and more features, and it was sort of becoming a sort of more tangible thing, and then sort of started sending it to friends. And then just as the sort of coronavirus was starting to, get quite serious and the lockdown started happening, I thought, well, it's quite a good time to start pushing it out there because people have quite a lot of time. So yeah, sort of like 5 years maybe. But the first versions they didn't look like this.
Cool. What kind of features are you dreaming of putting there?
Yeah, so I think some pretty logical next features will be like being able to kind of maybe have a bit more control over step-by-step values. And I think sort of the short term, the focus is definitely putting a lot of Creative Commons samples up there, which I found a lot of different libraries. So I think the focus at the moment is putting that on there, and then very much just sort of getting a lot of feedback. I mean, I've got a lot of different ideas, and we've got a lot of different kind of potential avenues that we could go down. But I think to begin with, I think just trying to sort of see where, I think the decision will sort of start to make itself. But yeah, there's definitely some exciting things coming soon, and we're sort of regularly updating and dropping things in and sort of testing things. So beta users get that. It's all live will update live and stuff. So I think definitely kind of sticking with just exploring this whole, what could the sampler do? There's some little sort of interaction things that we want to do, like click and drag to multiple select, and maybe like shorten the loop so you only have like 16 steps, so you can do like little bridge sequences and stuff like that. So quite a few different things really.
Well, that's very cool. And you were saying at the beginning that you have users all over the world in China and
It's crazy.
America. What kind of volume and what kind of marketing do you do to get those users?
Yeah, so to begin with, we started sending it to just friends and family, and then started posting it in a few different online groups. That's been our major sort of push at the moment, like putting it, there's like a lot of sort of Facebook groups like synthesizer users and web, like Ableton user groups and stuff, putting it in there, submitting it to some like just sort of like general sort of like UX design groups and stuff like that. But obviously because it's collaborative and people can make tracks and share them, it's got this kind of like network effect thing built into it where, I'd sign up and I'd be like, oh, this sounds cool, I want to send it to my friend, and then they do it. Can see that people are sort of sharing it around themselves quite a bit. And then, it got put on a blog in China that was, I think it must have come from the sort of UX thing that I put it on Facebook, because it was it was just like an aggregator of just sort of interesting website. So they had like visualizations and, like maps and like radio stuff and whatever. Then someone posted this up there, and then it was crazy because I could see on the analytics that like there was page views for pages in Chinese characters. So it must have like translated itself. So that was really crazy seeing like, because the tab's just called like Ocean Make Music Online or something like that. And I could see that, but in simplified Chinese characters, and it's just like, oh my god, that's gone out there very quickly. But yeah, so I mean, I suppose at the moment it's very much kind of like people sharing it amongst themselves. But I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of about it is this, we're really trying to kind of think of a way, how can we make this very accessible for all types of people all over the world, and try and get away from kind of language barriers and things like that. So I think it's been really exciting to see people hop on from different places, and you can see people in different countries collaborating with each other and stuff.
Right.
It's wicked.
And how are you considering the next 6 months to a year? Do you need funding? Are you looking for funding to
kind of. I mean, this is something that we're kind of exploring. I mean, at the moment, it's still a sort of I mean, there's a few things that we're looking at on that, but I mean, there's nothing stopping it just sort of rolling along as it is for a while. But because I mean, just exploring different options at the moment, really.
Right. So do you have a team working with you on this?
Yeah, so to begin with, it was just me when I was doing it at Goldsmiths. Then after a while, I had a couple of friends helping me. So my friend Natasha, who's got a background in the music industry, has been helping like really define their sort of like communication and the marketing, and generally like shaping the product decisions, like who are we aiming this for, like how could we get this into the hands of people who would enjoy it. And then my friend Burka, who's a wicked designer, has helped with the UX, UI, some interaction stuff. So it's just us three chipping away at it for quite a while, and this is where we got to.
Awesome. Well, I think that leaves us to a place where I don't see any more question on the comments, but thank you so much. It's great. I had a lot of fun jamming with you, and I have kids. I'd love to see them play with it and collaborate with others. I think it's a great tool to get an easy experience, and also a window into what music making is like. And I wish it was as simple as this for adults as well to make music.
Yeah.
Being inspired by the interface, by doing things that are meaningful immediately, I think is one of the biggest strengths of Ocean.
Thank you.
You get started very soon, and
because I think that I mean, we thought about how it could be incredibly more complicated than this, but we've sort of really tried to chop it down to sort of the bare minimums. And I think that having that constraint really, the constraints really sort of breed creativity as well. Like a lot of music, like some music was made on like PlayStations, like some early grime tunes are all made on like Music 2000 on PlayStation 2 and stuff, where you could just sequence beats and like put little loops on top and stuff. And it's like, that's basically all you need. And, you know, I'm sure that it'd be interesting to sort of see how different people kind of react to this. Cause, you know, it'd be interesting. So I'm sure that some people would sort of say like, you know, this isn't really music making. It's just, you're just like putting stuff together. But really, it's a lot more than that, because it's sort of the samples that you choose and the way in which you use them is kind of like talking to a sort of wider musical sort of culture. And these sort of, the sort of indulgent way to talk about it is probably like samples are not just like chunks of audio that people are just like sticking together like Lego. They're kind of like sort of cultural little artifacts that sort of talk about different kind of places and people and experiences, and so they have to be, you know, treated quite carefully. But it sort of definitely gives you this sort of all the tools that you need to start at least starting to understand, okay, how do these bits of sounds fit together to make certain types of music. And I remember when I started first playing around with the Ableton and stuff when I was about sort of 14, 15, and we sort of run a few different surveys that kind of back this up, and it's sort of people would kind of bang their head against the wall trying to learn it by trial and error, and just sort of like dropping bits of music that they like in there and sort of cropping bits out and really focusing on, oh, I see that the drums change like this and the synths go like this. And so being able to sort of teach people the fundamentals of kind of arranging beats, as well as just sort of getting really heavily into kind of like mixing and mastering, like that's way down the line for people who just want to you know, express themselves quickly. So yeah.
Yeah.
that was my
No, that's great. I mean,
cultural fragment thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I wish you the best of luck for the release of this, and it's great to know that you know you can carry on for a while before you seek funding, and like you're looking at some organic growth, I imagine.
Definitely.
And yeah, good luck with it all. So
yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was really, really fun. And yeah, it's live on the beta. We'll put the link up in a few places, and yeah, we'd love to hear how people get on. Any feedback on the feedback form would be super helpful. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. And stay cool.
Next Thursday we have Jordan Rudes coming in to share his experience of being in lockdown and what it means for professional musician to be not touring as much or at all, and also share his very long career doing product demonstration and engaging with technology as well, being the keyboard for Dream Theater. And then on Monday next week we have Roger Lynn, who has released the first drum machine in 1980. So it's been 40 years that he's been making instruments, and he's going to come on this channel to share his experience. So very much looking forward to the next talks, and we have more talks coming up all the way until the end of June, which will be announced shortly. Thank you again for joining. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we will be seeing you very soon. All right, bye-bye.